Hey, what's your problem? You have business problems? We have business solutions.
Not guaranteed.
Well, maybe. Life is a fight.
It is.
In business, every day is a fight.
So true.
So, hey, what's your problem?
Oh, man, where do I begin? What's my problem? Yes. Thank you, John David Wells, the big voice guy for the What's Your Problem program. Check him out at the Wells Report on Facebook. This is the What's Your Problem podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals about that one thing. It's always something that keeps us up at night. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. And as I'm going to hammer this message over and over and over again, 2023 is the year where we're going for 5,000 downloads per episode. Shooting high. Hell, why not? Let's go for 10,000 downloads per episode. So if you like what we're doing, please share it out. Rate it. Go to whatsyourproblempodcast.com. Follow along, subscribe. All the good stuff is there. Pick your poison. And I am your host, Jim McCarthy. And today, hailing from East Nashville, heading all the way down here to Alabama, we're pretty much on the state line, is Mr. Mark Scrivner with Snapshot Interactive. Sir, how are you?
Jim, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
I appreciate it, man. Bring that mic right up there if you can. A little bit closer.
It is God's country down here.
It really is. Very true. And I really do appreciate it. I know it's it's kind of like a nice early Friday. You know, once we're done here, you get to, we're just going to go home, right? Maybe have a date night or something like that. You know?
Sure thing.
So you have been at the helm of Snapshot Interactive for the past 11 years, correct?
We launched in 2010.
2010.
So it'll be 13 years.
Very, very cool. And our roots go back before that. I've done some video work for a company called CJ Advertising. But before we get into that, we're going to do something that we've actually discussed previously. You decided to do the Dad Joke Challenge.
Awesome.
As cheesy as it may sound, this is kind of a fun feature. It is brought to you by it'syourshow.co, where we produce podcasts like this. New term out there that I've been hearing is clip agency, because podcasts are great for long form content consumption for people to listen to. Great things you can find out there to marinate your mind in, especially if it's positivity and good stuff. But mainly that a lot of people that want podcasts want the micro content to put out in the socials. I've actually recently tried out the new algorithm on Instagram. 5 to 7 second videos.
That's the sweet spot.
Apparently it is. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I've actually found a 5 to 7 second piece of my podcast. I put it up there and let's see how it does. So as little as 5 to 7 seconds on up to 45 second clips. But generally podcast production, it'syourshow.co. There's the logo popping up on the display. Okay, here we go. Dad joke number 1. The rules of the game are you laugh, you lose a point. If you don't laugh, I lose a point. Or you get a point. Gosh. And, you can comment, you can answer, you can, all that fun stuff. So, am I really keeping point and score here? No, but just for fun's sake. All right, here we go. Joke number 1. What do you call a factory that makes okay products?
Don't have it.
A satisfactory.
That's a good one.
Not bad. Joke number 2. What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet?
Boo.
Supplies. You laughed. Score for me. Joke number 3. Have you heard about the chocolate record player?
Nope.
Sounds pretty sweet. Maybe my delivery's getting better. I don't know. We're getting some laughs here. What did the ocean say to the beach?
Wave?
It just waved. Nothing. It just waved. That's the punchline. Ugh. Okay, finally the last one. I only know 25 letters of the alphabet. I don't know why.
All right. Some good ones for me.
I'm telling you, it's They're cheesy as crap, and for some reason we all laugh at them, right? Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen those videos? Are you a big TikTok or Instagram Reels guy, and you kind of browse anything?
More on the Instagram side.
Are you?
Haven't got into TikTok as much.
I do the TikTok thing, and it's like there are guys that do the dad joke challenge thing where they try to make each other laugh. But these two guys that come to mind, they're sitting on a dock, and they're both wearing weird sunglasses. They have like funny cups of coffee, and two camera shot telling these dad jokes, and they just do it with the most deadpan attitude. It is very entertaining. Mm-hmm. But the origination of the dad joke is actually Stephen Wright. They're familiar with that comedian? Yeah. So he kind of invented the dad joke. So tell me about yourself, how you got into everything you do, getting out of college, and, were you always entrepreneurial coming out of the gate?
Jim, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. Mm-hmm. My dad and mom had a sign company as I was growing up. And so I always watched my dad work hard every day and build something pretty special. And my mom was always involved in it, doing the books and some of the operations. So then I went off to college, and I never really wanted to be in the sign business. I thought, there's a great opportunity for me to even move away from Central Missouri. And so when I graduated, I went to school for a hospitality restaurant administration degree. That's kind of my passion in high school and even through college. And so when I graduated, I went to work in the restaurant industry. I worked for a company called Houston's Restaurants. They used to have one here on West End Avenue. It was their very first restaurant, and went to Kansas City and worked for them, and then immediately got moved down to Nashville, and that's what brought me down here. And so I've been here since 1995.
Wow.
In the restaurant industry, I moved from Houston's. I got recruited away by J. Alexander's Restaurants and helped them build that company, and moved away. And after about 8 years of being in that, and just it's a 24-hour-a-day business, I started to look around and network, and that's when I got into the agency space. Met a guy that had an agency and was looking to really build it up, but he needed somebody to come in and run the operations and build the team, and so for about 4.5 years I did that before we launched Snapshot.
Okay, so you're referring to the CJ advertising years.
Mm-hmm.
That was when I actually worked. Arnie's been a part of this podcast as well, a couple of episodes ago. And he and I got together because I was doing these things called VidSigs at the time, white background, high key videos. And I worked with, I believe, your partner, Ben. Mm-hmm. And is Ben still part of the Snapshot organization?
He is,
nice.
Yeah.
He was a great guy to work with.
Arnie's a great entrepreneur, and I started with him. He had about 20 employees, and it was interesting. Our first interview, first meeting, I said, Arnie, I'm not here to tell you I know a bunch about marketing, but, I've ran operations, done some great things in the hospitality industry. And he said, that's great, because I know the marketing. I'm looking for somebody that can help me build this thing up. And so for 4 years, we built different departments and launched different service lines, and we grew it from 20 employees to about 85 when actually Ben and I left. And remember all the great times you doing the VidSigs and voiceovers for us.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad we've stayed in touch ever since.
Very loosely, but it's for a reason. You meet people, they come back into your lives and such. So, with that being said, coming from the hospitality industry, you learned a lot about the marketing advertising agency world, I guess, with CJ. And his was an amazing niche market. Who would have thunk that, personal injury attorneys would be a thing, and it was just a massive thing.
It's a great business model, and he's very focused, and, that niche market is something that was just very successful.
Yeah. But your big thing is also culture building within your organizations. Where did you get that? How did you learn all about culture? I love talking about culture.
Yeah. Yeah, culture is very important. I learned it in the restaurant days, like with J. Alexander's and with Houston's. Very, very good cultures, high standards, lots of operational expertise, like very high standards with the food and service quality. And so that was a great culture to learn from, just that, that hospitality. And I took that to the agency business when I worked with Arnie. We worked on culture, and he's a culture freak, and he does a great job with it. Wrote a book. I've actually read the book many times, and had many people on our team currently read that book. And so,
doing it wrong, right?
You have to try a lot of things, and Arnie's probably like the start of really learning a lot about the culture and really being intentional about the culture we're trying to build. And what I've learned over the many years is that not everyone is going to enjoy every piece of the culture you're trying to build.
Well, that's how you find the people that fit and don't fit. Especially if you have an identity within the organization. You've got the cultural pillars. You've got, a mission statement that makes sense, that is meaningful. Not just some corporatese that's slapped up on a wall that everybody reads from time to time. It's actually lived. It's funny because when I worked at the time when I worked with you guys, I was also, my day job was with South Central Media, South Central Radio, which was family owned, very culture driven. Our philosophy was the fish philosophy, which was born out of the Seattle fish market. And anybody who's not familiar with it, it was basically a bunch of people inside the organization who it's a mundane job. It's not exactly sexy. It's dealing with fish, gutting fish. They decided to make it fun, and they would actually throw the fish around inside the market. And it became such a thing that it's almost like a tourist destination now, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the name of the place, but that catalyzed the whole philosophy that these guys came up with, and it became a whole big movement.
Yeah,
and
it's the Seattle Fish Company.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. In the book Fish, we have our culture team. They read that, and that's kind of the intro to being a part of the team.
Right.
And it's about making people's day, having fun, just a lot of great philosophies that are really the foundational building blocks of building a culture.
And a lot of people, where does culture, in your opinion, have to originate from? I mean, it's not the collective. It's got to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think I have to lead the culture of the company. I mean, people look to the leader of any company. I look to Arnie when I worked for him as, he was the cultural leader, but, he's got to lead and inspire, and I do have to today lead and inspire people below me that they want to take on a certain aspect of the culture. Like, a lot of people think, hey, we can go in. I've thought this in the past. Let's go implement these 10 things.
Right.
And it really wears people out, and it almost is the adverse of creating a great culture. Like, people get wore out and they don't know which one to take part in. And what I've found is you really just layer it in one aspect of a time.
Right.
You build a champion around it, somebody that's super passionate about, whether it's, a book club and reading books and getting paid for it, or whether it's, planning the next happy hour for the company, or whether it's, planning some sort of event that happens on a periodic basis.
The culture champion is something that perks me up, because one of the organizations I work with here locally, the Mercedes dealership up by the airport, Mercedes-Benz of Music City, mbofmc.com. Might as well give them a plug. Their CEO is so culture focused, and even with his partner, it's Nick Saban from he's a head coach of Alabama football. He's a big culture guy too, because he's got to do that for his football teams, and that's what success leaves clues. And look at the track record of, maybe not from this last year, but a multitude of years, him being at the head of that team, what it's done for them. Same kind of phenomenon's happening for that dealership. And it's very interesting because you don't normally find that in a car dealership. The culture's, there's a culture. It ain't good. It's usually venomous and poisonous and toxic, or just neutral. But typically in those types of situations, they established, they have a quiver of arrows, and each employee is required to wear not required, but, hey, encouraged to wear it around your neck, and it's got all their pillars, all their arrows in the quiver. And there's like 28 of them, and they're all amazing. They didn't start out that way. They might have started out with 10, but I guess the first dealership he bought in Baton Rouge, he just said, look, we're just going to do this right. Treat people the right way, the frontline workers the right way, that treat our customers the right way. And I'm like, it's a no-brainer. Why does nobody else do this? I guess they just don't realize it,
Yeah, every business has a culture, whether it's positive, negative. Nick Saban, that's a great example of, the highest standards you could possibly have of, leading a team and really, expecting the very best every day that you show up. It's, he's done some amazing things there.
You mentioned being in the hospitality business. My business partner, John Werner, who was a couple of episodes ago as well, he came up, he got his stripes and getting into the workplace environment when he was younger with Chick-fil-A. And he was talking about the modern drive-through experience that you have at a Chick-fil-A. I'm like, you're kind of like, he almost catalyzed it. He and the guy who owned and operated the Chick-fil-A in Franklin came up with the system that we know today. So I'm like, that's kind of cool, dude. You could put that feather in your cap that you were at the beginning of that. But he talked about how that gentleman was just, servant leadership all the way, because it was military background that actually encouraged him to think in that direction. But even in restaurants, similar to the car business, culture is a challenge, I would imagine, right?
I bet it is. I mean, and I bet it's just unbelievable today. I look at it, I still eat at a lot of restaurants and appreciate, what people go through. But, these days, it's got to be much, much more challenging than it ever was before.
Think so?
Yeah, just with the economy the way it is, with the, finding great people. It's a challenge.
It comes down, it really does come down to, creating a destination workplace. You got to cost justify it, but at the same time, you got to dangle that carrot out there, I would imagine. Pay's got to be exceptional at a premium, I would think. There was Simon Sinek did a talk. It was a video that surfaced and came onto my radar not too long ago. He talked about a gentleman who served coffee, I want to say, at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas. And, every time he would walk by, the guy was right there, completely happy. You could tell he loved what he did. And Simon said, he just stopped one day and said, hey, man, what is it about your job? Why are you like this? And he goes, I love working here. And he says, I actually have another job at the Mirage or wherever. And he says, I have to do that job to make ends meet, but I love working here. He goes, well, you don't like he's like, here, my managers and my bosses ask me what I need. They're there for me, to help me, to give me the stuff, the tools to allow me to do my job to the best ability I can. When I go there, they tell me what to do. I'm like, oh
wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting. So from CJ Advertising, after 4.5 years, you're like, you know what? I'm going to do my thing. This is your first foray into doing your own thing, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I had done, I started with J. Alexander's and they were about to go bankrupt. It was a tough time in the business. There was a hostile takeover that was about to happen with O'Charlie's. And, I came in there and helped work day in, day out to help them build that company up. When I left, when I started, the stock was about $2 a share. Wow. And when I left, it was about $10 a share, and they had just got recognized as the best American traditional restaurant in the United States. And so, good stuff there. I felt like I was leaving on top. I went and worked with Arnie and helped him, and I learned so much in both those experiences.
Right.
And one day I just sat back and I'd had 100 crazy ideas that I'd given to my wife, and finally she's like, listen, I'm tired of hearing about all this stuff. You should just go try this one.
Right.
And really, like when I left to start Snapshot, it was around a really crazy idea. It was around creating video content for job seekers. And so we created a searchable database of video resumes. And, I said they have to be the highest quality out there in order for, this to be successful. And so we created all these video resumes, and you have to learn really about evolving the business. And I think because we thought it was going to be the next Facebook, and it was just really tough to convince people to pay money to be on video. And a lot of people aren't comfortable being on a video. So, we had done some great work, but we launched with really no clients. So a lot of times when people leave agencies, they go and they start an agency, but they take 2 or 3 clients with them.
Right.
And so it gives them a little bit of a safety net. Like literally we had no clients. We had a harebrained idea that we thought was going to be the next Facebook. And then we started to see that, man, this is a little bit tougher than what we anticipated. And we had to pivot very quickly in that, a lot of the CEOs that would look at these video resumes, they'd go, hey, listen, I need a video for me, but I'm not looking for a job. Right. Can you help me tell my story of why somebody would want to do business with us?
Right.
And so we quickly pivoted into executive profiles that, were 1 to 2 minutes on a CEO talking about their business.
And that's, you almost let the market tell you in a way, hey, we got this good idea. That's nice, but the market actually wants this. Mm-hmm. That's similar to what we do at J Squared. With the lighting aspect, we did a lot of standard functional lighting, white lighting, conversions for LED and stuff like that. And it wasn't until somebody said, we were doing a car wash installation. They said, these are all well and good, but can you make them change color and put on shows? And we were like, oh, you know what? Let's look into that. And then all of a sudden, here we are.
There's probably more money there.
There is, but you never know.
Yeah.
And it just takes one organization to do it in an industry for the rest of the industry to see it. And then they go, oh, I want that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They don't know what they want until they see it.
And the great thing about when we started the business was that the price of camera equipment was coming way down. So we were buying a $5,000 to $10,000 camera, and we were shooting the same quality as what some of these big production shops were with these $50,000 and $100,000 cameras.
Well, you guys started right around when the DSLR revolution was happening.
That's it.
And all these Hollywood movies were using DSLR technology. DSLR, for those of you who don't know, think of like the snap and shoot cameras with the interchangeable lenses. You see video being shot with them now. But back in the day, Hollywood realized, well, oh crap, we can get high definition video and trash the camera. And we're not going to lose, $100,000 camera. It only costs us $1,500. So they would put it in cars and trash the cars and blow them up. And you get these really amazing shots inside the car of the car being flipped over and down a cliff and all this other stuff. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I remember that.
The editing equipment. I mean, it was, we had a iMac and some Adobe software, and we were editing the same quality as what you'd spend for a $100,000 Avid editor bay.
Yeah.
And so we were able to hit the market at a great time and keep the cost very affordable to produce a lot of quality video content for our clients. And it seemed like every time we would produce, shoot, and edit a video, then we would say, well, what are you going to do with it next? What do you want? Where do you want this to be? And it was either on their website or it was, in an email marketing campaign or some sort of marketing campaign. So the first question after we did that was, man, you all made this easy. Do you do websites?
Yeah.
And so that there was another evolution. And it's one of those that you go to a meeting and, most entrepreneurs, the first time they start their business, you go to a meeting and the client goes, oh, I want this, 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 and this. Can you do all that?
Yeah.
And you say, oh, man, yes, we can do that. And then you walk out of the meeting and you say, how are we going to do that? And you have to figure it out, and you have to go find the resources that can step in and help support that.
It reminds me of a lot of business coaches that say, when you're starting a business, you can't say yes to everything. I'm like, I beg to differ. You got to cash is oxygen.
Absolutely.
And that's how you survive. So you got to say yes to a lot of stuff. For me, in that season, it was a side hustle for me. When I was doing the work for CJ Advertising, it was literally a side hustle. You talk about building up how inexpensive things have become. I wonder if Arnie even knows this, but I was literally editing his videos on my couch with my laptop back in the day while my wife was watching TV. And she's like, "You never spend time with me." I'm spending time with you. I'm just working.
Absolutely.
But, so that was your first, any side hustles up until then? So this is truly your first step into being self-employed.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no really side hustle. We did build that platform of the searchable database. We built it at nights and on the weekends. I mean, I never wanted to do anything on like company time.
Right.
But at the same time, like that was what led us into the entrepreneurship with Snapshot. And it was interesting you said that about, don't dictate what the market needs, give it what it asks for. Actually, we had that same conversation with Jeff Cornwall at Belmont University. He teaches entrepreneurship there, and we took him to coffee and showed him everything we were working on. Said, "Jeff, this is the $1 billion idea." And he said, "Boys, if I can tell you one thing, don't dictate what you think the market wants. Give it what it asks for."
Yeah.
And that's where we started to evolve.
But with the intention, with what you thought was going to work, but it led to other things.
Yeah.
When did you start, when did the rubber really start getting traction and you knew, okay, this is going to work? How long did that take?
It was probably after the second year. It was actually probably after the first year. The second year, when we started out, we did maybe $100,000 first year in revenue, and we had a line of credit, thank God, and it kept us in business. And the next year, we really started to get a lot of traction, and we started to really figure out the path. And we got an executive coach who helped us set the strategy, and we just executed. And so, we grew it for about 5 years, and all we did were 3 things. We did videos, websites, and animations.
That's crazy.
We had 4 salespeople. They were out there working the market. We had about 20 employees after, year probably 3.5. We had 20 employees, and we were just producing videos, putting them on websites, which then led to the websites, and then it was animated videos because, man, I've got this really complex issue with my business, and I need to tell it, but every time I have to explain it to a client, it takes me 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I want to boil this down to, 45 seconds.
In a video. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're a couple of years in, you've got some employees. Tell me about like the sales process and training a sales force. Bringing those, like, what was you started with one sales guy, or did you go with all 4?
Well, we layered them in, and I would say like the sales guy was me at the very beginning.
Sure.
And thank God I had a creative partner, and he executed on all the work that we brought in, and then we started to build that team up. And then it was like, well, what if we got another salesperson? And it's never like I had came from a sales background. I just, came from the hospitality. I had to convince people to, join a company. Like when we were hiring all the people at CJ, it's sort of you're selling them on the company, on the culture.
Really are.
And so really like I was in my element. I just really never knew it. I'm there to talk to a CEO or a marketing director or whoever it might be about the power of, having great content on your site or having a site that really tells your story. And then we started to layer in other sales folks, and man, we've learned a lot along the way of, teaching salespeople, managing salespeople, and, some of the highest performing salespeople don't want to be managed. They want to set their own goals and execute against it. And so
the best salespeople typically ask, okay, how much can I make if I just do this? Mm-hmm. Okay. They don't ask about hours involved. They don't ask about, days off or anything. You could definitely tell the hunger that they bring to the table. Throughout that time, though, I mean, every time I turn around, you're always you're on LinkedIn a lot. I see you quite a bit in the Nashville Business Journal and Nashville Chamber of Commerce types of posts and stuff like that. You've become like a darling entrepreneur of Nashville, right?
Jim, I think it all comes back to really like the team that we've built and the business that they've really helped us all build. So
Well, you've also recently got honored with a title, Most Honored CEO. Is that the case? Is that
there's a very interesting tagline with that. It's Most Admired CEO.
Right.
And their companies. And I think that that last part is probably the most important because, the teams that they're the ones that really make me have the opportunity to go up and represent and, the company on that.
Right. Did you get a lot of team turnover or anything? You have a pretty solid team over the years.
We've grown and evolved over the years. As we started to move from just being a video, a website, and an animation shop to more now, we're moving into strategy. We started working with bigger and bigger clients, and the questions were different. It wasn't about one video; it was about tell me the strategy that we ought to put together to create content for this year, and how many should we do? What's the length? And then how much is the budget going to be? And Mark, is there any way we could break it up every month? So then it was we learned about retainer revenue.
Right.
And, that's very powerful to an advertising agency is having that recurring revenue that comes in every month. So, in day one, you're not walking in going, man, I've got to feed all of these people. I've got to go out and get $200,000 this month of new business just to sustain.
Hunt and kill.
Mm-hmm. And so, we started to evolve to more of a retained, business model. And, we've maintained a very good staff up until probably, 2020 when we went through COVID. It was, tough times. There, and we did keep a majority of the team that we had, so it wasn't like we had a huge turnover, but I don't think we were insulated like most other companies to the great resignation that happened. And now with the workforce, a lot of people in our industry are very, very sought after,
right?
And they can work jobs that are in New York and make more money and
do it right from their living room.
Yeah. And that's the economy. And, being in a creative agency, it does require some collaboration.
Yeah.
And not all of that can be done, just via Zoom calls every day. And in fact, some of the team we found, man, I would much rather come back into the office and get COVID than to stay at home, and work from my house. I'm freaking out.
Yeah. I found that about myself, that I like to thrive on a team. Even here, even though I'm kind of heading up the marketing efforts of the J Squared initiative with all things, part of what we're doing is building a media team over the next couple of years. I'm a huge proponent and fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he talks about, every company, it's look, first and foremost, you're a media company. Because without that and posting and promoting on social media, you can become irrelevant really fast. And he's not wrong, especially with commoditized industries, as we've come to find out. I've learned, because of my background in radio, that I did the solopreneur thing. I just love being a part of a team. I'm not the guy that has to have the ideas. I like to have a spark of an idea. Hey, what do you think of this? And let's all build upon it together and see where we can go with it and make a fun video about lighting and the car washes. I had, last year, you remember the show, it was on HBO, Peacemaker with John Cena? Mm-hmm. And the intro to that show is hilarious. They do this really funny dance, the whole cast, and it's to this 80s hair band rock song. And I even looked into who the band was, because the song was just a fun song. Dude, I got turned on to the entire band. They're like a Swedish hair rock band that's contemporary. They actually put out, they put out an album in 2020, and it's good. It's really good, for guys like me that like that kind of music. But, they tour around the country now and everything. So I had this idea, because a lot of people remaking the intro. And I said, this is perfect. They got the lights going on. I said, we need to get a bunch of car washes, take our staff around, or take their staffs and remake the video. Never did it, but, a whole bunch of other things were going on. We were seeding a company and starting it up, but, it might be a possibility.
Yeah. Down the road, Well, I think COVID really changed a lot of businesses. But in the agency world, I mean, where, there was just a lot of collaboration before COVID. I mean, everybody was in the office. I mean, we learned very quickly that most of all the work can be done remotely. Yeah. And then it's like, now how do we keep that culture alive? And, I would say we had a great culture going into the COVID downturn. And then I would say it didn't go from like really good to like really bad. It almost went from really good to almost like there's a no culture. Right. It's the culture, you had to work even harder to even just have a good culture. Almost nebulous. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was. Yeah. And I mean, those people some people were like, I never want to come back in the office, and that's great. And you had to, we could see that you could get your work done and not be in the office. But we had an equal amount of people that said, man, I can't stand being at home anymore. Like, I have to be around people. That's what feeds my energy every day and my creativity. And, I need to be around and collaborate with people. And for like young folks coming out of college, I mean, that we interview and hire, a lot of times I say, it's not so much about what you hear in the meeting with the client. It's from the time you leave that meeting and what you hear to the coffee maker, or back to your, as you're walking back to your desk. It's, those things of, hey, did you pick up on this that the client said? And one thing to key in on is, this is what they meant by this, and this is how we ought to put it back together for them in the plan. Yeah. But I mean, at least you adapted the flexibility that, hey, if you want to, hybridize your work environment, you can do it from home. You can do it, from your desk or whatever. Absolutely. That's an option. I mean, what are the things that are you putting into practice that other business owners, ourselves included, to help promote a good culture? Events, socials, things of that nature. What at the office do you kind of put out there to cultivate that? We do, like last night we had an event called the Creative Assembly, and we try to bring together other agency owners, their teams, freelancers that work with us, or just people in the creative community out there that want to network with other creators. And, I want to go. Oh, you should. We do it. We're doing it every other month, right. And we do it on Thursday night every other month, and it's been, it's a building process. We've had more people every single time we've done it, but it's just great to get that community together that supports each other. And so we do things like that. We've found that like in the past, I would have said that I'm probably more to the everybody needs to be in the office 100% of the time. Yeah. And through COVID and even today, I've learned that, man, that flexibility means more to a lot of people than even the money. It's almost like parenting, you remember Phil Valentine, God rest his soul. Mm-hmm. He came in, I got an opportunity to know him pretty well, not only through our radio, our shared radio passion, but he and I, we did a bunch of podcasts together. I'd provided the voiceover for his son and his podcast, The Pod Goats, back in the day. And he was telling me some stories on one of the episodes that I had. It might have actually been in the early stages of this podcast with him and he and Campbell. I asked him, I said, because his sons they have some stories that some of the stunts that his kids have pulled. And I said, how did you react to that as a dad? He's like, sometimes you just got to let them be who they are. And I've never forgotten that. And it's almost the same thing even when you're a manager or an owner. Sometimes you just got to let your employee, not that like they're kids, I'm not trying to say that, but just let them be who they are, and they'll figure out a way. It's not a 9-to-5 type of economy anymore. Yeah. It's just it really like what you're talking about. Yeah, it really isn't. And I've read many, many studies on this, and one that comes to mind is just that how do you get teams to want to come back into the office? Right. And a lot of companies throw money at them. A lot of companies throw like lunches or happy hours every day or every week. And really it came down to one thing, and that was they wanted to be around their friends They wanted to be around their colleagues who became friends, who really became a part of their family, because you literally spend more time with the people you work with than, your family. Yeah. And they just wanted to, like, what got people to want to come back was to be around those people they loved and trusted and, worked side by side with.
You can't get any better than that.
And so we focus a lot on how do we inspire that with the team and have events to pull them all together and make them feel like they're a part of where we're heading as a company. And we do a lot of strategic planning. Every quarter we take our team away for a day and we plan for the next quarter. We do it annually and we set annual plans and we break those down by quarterly priorities and that has been big for the momentum we've had as a company, but it's also been very big in that, people take a lot of ownership in being able to help set the direction of where we're going. If I've found over the years that if I just come out and say, here's where we're going and here's how we're going to get there and, you all just go do it, never works.
Right.
But the day that I say, hey, we need a new, project management system, and that's a huge task in an agency. You would find that people that you would have never thought of go, I want to sign up for that and I'll own it. Right. And they go out and they do a much better job at finding it, implementing it, and training the entire team on it than I would have ever done. And if it would have depended on me, it would have not got done.
That reminds me of one of the arrows that Dream Motor Group uses. It's called You're Empowered. And it reminds their employees that no matter what, when it comes to making right by a customer, you are empowered to make those decisions. Because they found that typically, if you've got a customer that's upset about something, the monetary amount it takes to satisfy that customer above and beyond is literally under $300. It literally takes something that's about $250 to $300 on average, and they're like, we can just. You guys, obviously we can't have you promising, engine rebuilds or anything like that in case something like that happens. But if it's something that you can make it right with something from the parts department or a jacket or something like that, or, free oil change, you are empowered to make that decision. You're not going to have any recourse. You're not going to get in trouble. This is part of our, interwoven fabric of our culture that we want to make sure that you have that power. And it's similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, I bet their team takes just a ton of ownership in that.
They do. I mean, and it's funny because you can detect the people that just aren't going to fit. They think it's hokey. They think it's corny. Back in my radio days, like I said, we did the fish philosophy. Every quarter we would have an event, take a half a day or so, go over the health of the company, a state of the union, if you will, go to lunch together, go bowling, whatever. And it was always fun, but you'd get some people that would just gripe about it. Oh, I got to get back to work and I got to do all this stuff. And now in a couple of hours, that usually takes me. But dude, they're taking you out to lunch. You know how many companies don't do this?
Oh, yeah.
Christmas parties. There was actually, I was invited to a Christmas party this year and people were griping about the Christmas party being different. Like they scheduled it differently. It was a different format. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know how many companies, especially when times were tight and after the recession, 2008, that just did away with all that. We were still doing it. I can't go, it's on a Saturday night. Who cares? They're doing it for you. Have that kind of gratitude.
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Getting into other things, you were into, oh man, I lost my track of thought. Great. Talking about culture, talking about video. You touched upon essentially the gig economy with all the challenges. Well, actually, maybe that's the whole thing. Well, we'll kind of do this here. Here we go.
What's your problem?
We're 43 minutes in. What is your problem, Mark?
Jim, I think that probably just a problem in our industry is the evolution of how things move so quickly.
Yeah.
And the teams that it takes to do what we do today, which is wildly different than a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago.
It is.
And, And so I think that's probably like we've had to evolve the company from day one into different product lines, different services, even fast forward to today, what are we? We're a digital marketing agency. And you hear that term thrown around so many different ways. And it's like, well, really, what do you do?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we do social media. It's like, okay, great. That's one component of it. It's like, well, we build websites, and it's like, okay, that's another component of it. And so as we've evolved upstream to where today, like we're really a strategic marketing agency that does digital marketing for our clients. And that is, most of our engagements now start out with branding. And so we'll go through exercises around like logos and color palettes and messaging and all of that. And then it's carried over to, their online presence, which typically like, their website, and then it's their marketing stack. And now that marketing stack is growing because there's so many tools that come out. It almost seems like it's daily that you have new marketing tools that you're using. But, you build the website, you implement the CRM and the marketing automation, and then it's like, now we get to go do all the work.
Yeah. And
that work is really, we find from a lot of our clients, it's most of the time driving leads and opportunities and new revenue streams for a company, or it could be even recruiting. I mean, in these days, right now, we've got a lot of clients that, we do a lot of digital marketing and targeting around finding their employees for them.
Oh, wow.
And so it's, the world has changed. And then, in our industry now, the tracking and reporting is really very spot on in that, I spent $10,000 and I was able to generate without a doubt, $100,000 on that. And we can report back to companies that we've done that. And I would say, Jim, in the past, like my problem was we thought that we needed to do all of that under one roof. Like we had to have all the experts on the team in the building. And
is that even possible?
It's not possible these days.
Yeah.
And what we've really tried to do is we're going to build a network of what we call co-creators or the freelancers. Could be a company, could be another agency, small, nimble, agency that does a really, really good job with this one particular area of the marketing.
Right.
Or it could be just a individual that, man, they are the very best at doing social media management, and we're going to pull them into this one account. And so like, building that creative like fabric of like Nashville and how do we pull these groups together, and how is there not competition? How does everybody lift each other up? And really that's to do the very best work for clients. Mm-hmm. And to get the best results. And so, we've done that. That's really like the problem is building that network. Mm-hmm. And we feel like we're on the back end of that. We've got some amazing partners that we work with, and so we're doing some much bigger work like any of the big agencies in Nashville are doing for their clients. We're in a position now with this economy to do the same type of work.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned the event, the every other month event that I'd like to be a part of.
Yeah,
I would imagine that helps that.
Absolutely. You find those partners. And I mean, you and I have talked about just even building podcasts for our clients and how you could step in and help augment our team and be that resource that, does a really good job, very trusted, knows this business. It's like, I don't want to build a team around that. It's just easier for someone who's an expert.
Yeah. And it's, you can even have like just the platforms themselves. Instagram in and of itself can have its own expert within the team. Mm-hmm. You can build a business on just helping people master Instagram, especially if you stay ahead of all the algorithm changes. Being on TikTok. I mean, I've heard umpteen times for my son that TikTok was going to be shut down over the last year. Oh, they're shutting it down. That's what you said 2 months ago. He said it again last night. I said, you said it in the past. Maybe you're right this time. But I mean, you just never know what the next big thing is. What my kids are doing. I guess that's what you need to do is pay attention to what your kids are doing.
That's it.
Because my daughter she's like, you haven't done your Be Real. Have you heard of Be Real? Mm-mm. Oh, it's like another thing to learn. It's like never ending, Be Real is where you are challenged by your peers and friends. And I'm probably messing up the description of this, but from what I understand, it uses both sides of the phone. So you have to take a picture of yourself, and then it takes the environment you're in using the other camera, the other side of it. So you literally have a certain amount of time. If you're challenged on a Be Real, you have like 2 minutes to respond, and it takes both pictures. So if you're on the toilet or something like that, you better finish your business and get somewhere else. It's an interesting concept, but I'm like, okay, when are marketers going to come in and ruin this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, this industry just evolves just every day. So, and there's, new platforms coming out with AI that, writes
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, the copywriting aspect of it. I've used it for social media posts, thought starters at least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take them verbatim. Podcast descriptions, it's very helpful. Blog posts, things of that nature. But, it's nice to plug in all this is what I want to say, go, and then massage it to make sure it's what I want it to be.
Yeah.
I found it very useful for that. How about you?
It is very useful to start out with, but I think right now it still speaks like a machine. And I think, you do have to come back in and massage it a bit, but it saves a ton of time and energy.
In the voiceover field, there's a lot of AI happening with that. A lot of my peers in that industry are very concerned about the humanness of voiceover being replaced, and even video spokespeople are being replaced now by AI avatars. I've seen that today. And I'm like, we were worried about this back in the 80s with electric drums. You remember that whole, and we still kind of use that today, loops and things of that nature, sequences and programs. That came about in the late 70s and 80s, but it hasn't replaced the drummer. Drummer, there's still a human element to art that people crave.
Yeah. And it will continue to evolve. So, I don't think it's going to replace anybody. I think it's the amount of content that now is required, is going to require tools like this and the experts that have been doing it for forever. And, and even we'll see that their jobs will continue to evolve. Web is another area where I could see AI taking over and building websites for you down the road.
Yeah.
It's, so that could displace, development, but it's an exciting time to be in this industry. It's, it's a great time to be in Nashville. Nashville's, we talked a little bit about it before the show, just of the entrepreneurial community, the energy around the city, the businesses. So
it is amazing how it's just crazy how things have developed with Nashville in general. I mean, we were talking about EO and you being part of EO. What year did you join them? Because I know they have a parameter you got to meet for your business. So was it 2012, 13 or so?
13.
Or was it?
Yeah.
And then, we have the biggest EO chapter here in the country, as opposed to other cities like New York, major markets, major hubs. How does Nashville outshine all of that? The only way I can really think to address that is because we have a youthful community here that really loves the whole entrepreneurial spirit. In New York, they've already, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere type of attitude. New Yorkers are just a whole different planet. Not sure, I don't know if they're just not as entrepreneurial because they're so well established. Maybe back in the 1800s, it was different.
Yeah. Jim, in Nashville, what I've found is that over the years, I think I've been very lucky, and our company's been very lucky in that, a lot of people want to help people in Nashville. It is not too hard to get a meeting with people you think that I'll never be able to get a meeting with.
Right.
But everybody's wanting to help everyone out in the city, and it may just be because Nashville's a very friendly city.
Yeah.
But there have been many times along the way that I've reached out to people I thought would never take a meeting with me, and they've said yes. And not only that, but they're like, Mark, maybe I need to introduce you to these other 2 people that you ought to know based on what you're asking.
The thought leader business influencer community out there in general, in the world, in this country, I guess you could say, is generally pretty accepting and open to collaboration. Just ask. Some people were amazed that I got Ivan Meisner and Grant Cardone on my previous podcast episodes. How did you get them? I asked them.
Yeah,
that's it. There's really nothing else to it, and they said yes. Same thing. It's almost like Nashville is that in a super concentrated hub, but personified.
Absolutely.
You just get to meet the people here in person. It's crazy. It really is. But how do people get in touch with at snapshotinteractive.com, I'm pretty sure. And they can follow you and everything. We'll put your details in the description.
Definitely.
Anything else you want to talk about or bring to surface?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. All things Snapshot Interactive. Make sure you go into the description. All the links will be there, as well as, everything for What's Your Problem podcast. Again, shooting for 5,000 average downloads per episode this year. If you can help us out, that would be wonderful. We're actually well on our way. I checked the analytics the other day. The numbers are starting to tick up. I'm very happy about that. Check us out, what'syourproblempodcast.com. If you have suggestions, anybody that you think should be a guest. If you want to be a guest, let's talk. Go to what'syourproblempodcast.com. Mark, once again, always a pleasure to talk to you. Great to see you in person once again. And let's continue talking this conversation offline, so to speak. And thanks for coming down here, my friend.
Thanks, Jim.